Giving up a big round of applause for Muhammad Ali Sheikh. A warm welcome to you. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a big round.
Hello, check. Hello guys. So I'm really sorry to starting it late. We'll just get started quickly, but I feel we'll just stay focused. But before we get started, I want to understand what's your background. I mean, like I see a bunch of you guys here, right? So you guys come from what sort of background in the games space? Are you particularly from games or XR, Unreal Engine? What else? That's it? Okay, cool. So let's get started. I mean, I'm sure you must have gotten an intro, right? So this is about game industry career cheat code. So we would largely be talking about how to get into the industry and all. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mohammed. I'm from Goldrefi. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Goldrefi. We are an exclusive talent partners in the games space. So we work with studios all across globally. Primarily, we started working in India, but now we're working globally. So just to give you a quick snap. growth, right? So these 33,000 crores would translate into 80,000 crores in next 5 years from now, right? So which basically gives us an indicator that there would be a lot of growth in the industry, which automatically needs a lot of talent, right? So therefore, to correlate that, there would be close to 200,000 to 300,000 jobs that would be created, new additional jobs I'm talking about, keeping aside the existing talent pool that is approximately close to 100,000. So there would be another 2 lakhs to 3 lakh people that would be added into this industry, right? So that's the big number that we're talking about, and that's the whole point we're having this conversation today. So to just get to actual conversation, right? So we've now got the landscape of what is this industry going to be and all. We would be having this conversation broadly divided into 4 parts. So the first part is like, the first part itself is like going to be your resume, your portfolio. That is something that gets the attention, right? So straight away we jump into it. But before we jump, as I've said, like it's resume, but I still would like to know from your side as well, so that we. Awesome. Experience, living for insurance and a wife. Cool. Social security, getting the job. Okay. Living. Okay. New challenges, quality of work. Okay. Cool. Any last minute additions? Okay. We can move to the next slide. Right. So, in fact, if you look at the density of the pointers here, right, so probably everybody, like I just could see portfolio a little bit comparatively to the rest of it. But yeah, all the points were really important. Majorly the living for insurance and wives. So I believe that is mostly important. Let's get on to the resume part. So which I would say that your resume and portfolio is like your weapon or a tool that basically you would use that as a tool, like so that you can get into the zone or get the attention of a recruiter, right? So that's very important. So what is the first thing that you guys, when you make a resume, right? So if you look at a resume, what is that one thing that is really important that could be eye-catchy, which basically the first attention that we get? Which part of the resume that our attention goes to the moment we look into it? Sorry? Skills? Projects? Okay. I would say it's the header. So the header you put, right? So your name, your email ID, your contact details and all. So that's the first thing anybody looks at the moment they open the resume, right? So that is where we do a lot of mistakes. I mean, a lot of us do mistakes often there. So that is using a very generic email ID. So just take an example of an Aditi. Aditi, I mean, this is something like, we have taken just to illustrate you the example of it. Like we've been seeing a lot of resumes, out of which I picked up this email ID. So Aditi rocks. So what is the problem with this email ID? Sorry? Yeah, it's informal. It's very generic, right? So now what is that? How can we make this email ID better? So probably, can we do this? Aditi, oops, my mistake. So this happens to be something else. So it is basically, you can put aditi1234@gmail.com, or you can write aditi2001@gmail.com. So you can use your date of birth and email ID. So I would say still try to avoid the numeric digits in the email ID, so that sometimes eventually that would be a problem. So I would say we can use something like this. Your first name dot last name @gmail.com is the most idealistic way to put it. But this gets me a lot of questions. So it's it is not available. So what if this email ID is not available? So what am I going to do now, right? So therefore, I just have some small helpful framework here just to create this email IDs. So one is, as I said, so first name plus last name that you can use. The next is you can use your first initial and then you can have your last name. Then probably you can use first name, middle name, and your last name, but middle initial you can use there. And there you can use first name plus your job title. Probably let's take your XR dev. So you can use aditi.xrdev@gmail.com, or you're an artist, you can use aditi.3dartist or aditi.animator@gmail.com. So something of that sort. But this is not limited here. So you have wide variety of options that you can explore here to just get going, right? So this is just to illustrate an example. Are we clear here on this email? Okay. So we'll move to the next slide. What is the next part now? So you guys have almost got few points, right? Support skill set, few other things, projects and all. But still, again, I'm asking this question. Let's take, I've done with the header. So what is the next thing that my attention goes to? Sorry? Okay, cool. So what, if it's not a working professional then? Okay. So slightly like either it is working professional or it is a fresher. I would say what is very, very important is your summary, which means like the moment you have your header, you summarize yourself. The reason I'm telling you this is because on an average, as of date I'm saying you, on an average a studio gets approximately around 80 to 100 applications per job posting that they do. And if I talk about the big studios, big names, they might eventually they'll be getting 300 resumes as well, right? So out of this 300 resumes or 100 to 300 resumes, right? So how do you try to stand out? I mean, how do you make your resume stand out? And also there is one more problem to this same thing. That is, it's not just number of applications, but also the ATS, the applicant tracking system, the software that is basically working as a wall between the human recruiter and you as a job seeker, right? So when this is happening, on an average, like 80% of the applications have been rejected automatically by the applicant tracking systems, right? So how do you beat them? That's the summary, that's the weapon that you have. Now, if you've cleared that also, you're part of the 20% elite who made it that cut through the ATS. How do you basically, again, so these guys, like the recruiters, even myself, for example, if I have to tell you, so I hardly spend less than 30 seconds on a resume initially when I'm looking at it. So, I mean, I first look at a portfolio although, but just giving you a context. So when we look at a profile, so we hardly look less than 30 seconds and we make a decision whether we should spend enough time on that or not. So what I did was, first I would like to help you chalk out a small framework again. So because this is very essential to have a right summary. Again, you need not write the whole history paragraph there, or probably you need not have an essay writing competition on your summary wherein you started talking right from the beginning of your career, or few people do mistakes writing very generic objectives there, right? So we'll just look at this framework and then we'll look at how this framework can translate your summary, right? So I would say start off with a very descriptive adjective. So you define yourself. I mean, let's imagine if you're a dev, so probably you can start off a descriptive adjective, very relatable, could be as a problem solving person, right? Or if you're an animator or if you're an artist, probably this could be, you can state that I'm a creative professional, or if you're a product, you're exploring something in the product side, or you're exploring something on a commercial side of a game, so which is design or product side of it, you can say result driven. So something of those adjectives you can use it. So followed by your current job title, right? So who you are as of now. I mean, like you said, you're a result oriented, but who you are. So I'm a result oriented programmer, right? Or a result-oriented game developer. So that's how the next thing goes. Followed by, you can add your experience. So when I say experience here, now you might think, what if I don't have experience? So probably you can add a little bit from your internships you must have done or the projects that you must have done, right? So followed by that, you can add area of expertise. So now 4 things we got, right? So descriptive adjective we have, current job title, experience level, and areas of expertise. So if I have to just frame a sentence using this, I would say if I'm a game developer, so I would say result-oriented game developer with 2 years of experience building free-to-play mobile games, right? So which is free-to-play is area of expertise. Mobile games could be area of expertise. So that's how the definition of this is going to be. So then followed by the key skills. Now, how did I build these mobile games? How did I build this free-to-play games, right? So I must have used some game engine. I must have used a specific programming tool, or I must have used probably code repositories, right? So I can use those specific tools over there. Or if I'm an artist, I must have used Maya, or I must have used Blender, ZBrush. So something of that sort. That's what the key skills is all about. Now, this is the most important part. You need to now define that why is that I am important. So the recruiter or the hiring manager should or must know that, okay, this is the guy I should really talk to, right? So that's your notable achievement. So now this is also a very arguable point. You might think if it's an experienced dev or an experienced artist, they might showcase their achievements, notably what they've done. But what if I'm a fresher? What if I'm just a passed out grad, right? So still you can do this. I mean, there's a lot of ways to put this across. For example, if you are a game dev and have experience, probably you can mention, hey, listen, I basically wrote a code which had improved the crash. I mean, there was crash rates of X percentage, but I've improved it. Probably you can say that I have improved it from the memory leaks, probably. So the various points you can have that, or you can say that I've improved the rendering as well, the performance of it. If you're an artist, probably you can talk about how I reduced the poly count, but still didn't compromise on the quality of the asset, right? So those are the things that you can add it. But what if you are a fresher? So probably you might say that I really don't know what to measure here as a notable achievement. So in this scenario, I would say that probably you take an example of a college project you must have done or a game jam that you must have participated. Now measure your efficiency. So when I mean efficiency in the sense in terms of your time. So how fast you could build something, right? So I've built 3 game ready assets in a day or in 2 days or in a week, right? That basically lets the hiring manager know that what kind of speed that you have, and they can basically start measuring that looking at your portfolio. When I look at your portfolio, looking at the asset quality versus now when I look at that achievement, I can correlate, okay, how fast this person can get into my team and start building and shipping things for me, right? So that's the notable achievement part is. Next is the role you are applying. So I would say, since I had a limited space in my slide, so I just mentioned job role applying for. So I want you guys to customize these 2 things. One is add the studio that you're applying for, and also the role that you're applying for. So this customization, this personalization really makes a lot of difference. For example, just on a casual note, for example, if I have to call somebody, so there's a person called Nikhil here on the audience side, right? So instead, if I call him, hey man, how are you? Or hey Nikhil, how are you? Right? So these 2 things are 2 different ways when you pursue it. Right? So that's how studios also look at it. So when the studio feels that, hey, listen, this guy has invested time to apply for this job and he has customized things for me, right? Which means he's really serious about this opportunity. Because in the beginning I told you, right? So the 300 applications probably a big studio like Zynga, Rockstar or Scopely gets. So out of that, a lot of people would have been random clickbaits. They must just have been clicking on apply button, right? So they also know it. These guys would have, they might not be really serious about it. So you need to tell that recruiter or the hiring manager that I'm really serious about this. So try to add the role that you're applying for, and try to add the studio name when you write it, right? So then followed by the relevant skills and experiences. So when I mean this, you must be asking, so already we have mentioned our skills, But here, in this last part of the skills, you need to map out what is that the job descriptions talk about. So what skills does job description is demanding? And do I really have those skills? Try to map those and integrate them in your summary. So this problem solves three things. A, you will stand out in that 300 people who have applied for that particular job. B, the ATS will also try to put you in a priority bucket because you have ticked all the boxes. So you match the skill set with your with the job description, and you personalized with the company and the title that we are looking for, and also you have basically mentioned what is that you achieved by in a similar role previously, right? So that's basically in short it is. So we'll translate these and put this across as an example. Okay, so I would really appreciate if someone could volunteer and read this out. That would be of great help. Yeah, please.
Hello. Yeah, detailed trainee game developer with 6 months of experience in developing puzzle games, skilled in Unity game engine and C#, with a strong grasp of a low-level design and OOPS concepts. OOPS concepts. Successfully contributed to the development of a puzzle game that achieved over 10,000 downloads within the first month of release. Now looking to transition into a game developer role where I can apply my expertise in Unity, C# and technical problem solvings to contribute to the development and engaging high quality games.
Okay, perfect. So the reason why I asked you to read out loud is because I now further wanted to understand the framework that we discussed, right? So if you just could help me deconstruct this whole one with a framework, so this workshop I just wanted to make sure that you take away these points and try to integrate this in your resumes. That's the whole intention of this is. So if you are not comfortable, don't volunteer. But if you volunteer, please, we would basically be now deconstructing this particular description. So are we okay to do that? Or you want me to move to the next slide? Can we do that? Move to the next slide? Okay, perfect. Cool. So now, this is the most important thing I would say. Once you're done from your header, there's a summary. Now comes the interesting part that you guys were talking about, projects and experiences, right? So, because now the attention, my time of 30 seconds or my time of 5, 6 seconds or 8 seconds that I invest on your resume has caught attention to me on this guy. And now I'm going to read more in details about this profile. So, we're going to take 2 examples now, again, in this particular slide to make you understand in a more easiest way. One is basically a dev. So this is one of the responsibility on the resume people write. So developed gameplay mechanics in Unity or coded gameplay mechanics in Unity or something of that sort. If it's a game designer at an entry level who's creating levels and stuff like that, they might say, hey, created game levels or created 10, 15 game levels. Something of that sort is what they put it. So what is the best way we can translate these and put it in a better fashion? So to do that, we would use this action and what you did and what is the impact of what you've done, right? So this is the formula that we're going to use so that you can make each of your responsibility more clear, right? So this is what it's going to be like: developed and optimized 3 core gameplay mechanics in Unity, reducing lag by 20% and improving responsiveness. So what are we telling here? I mean, like, we are telling the hiring manager. So see, hiring manager knows what a developer does, right? But you need to tell them, hey, listen, I know also what to do it. So so there is always a purpose a company is hiring you. So if anyone that they're hiring, there is always a problem that they want you to solve for them. So that could be time, or that could be efficiency, or in terms of the speed. So when this comes, like, it's not just about skills, but it's all about how can you put the skills to use for the purpose that they're doing. So here we're defining that purpose. So this person is very clear. So if you look at this responsibility again, so he's talking about the outcome of why he has developed or what he has coded, right? He's talking about how he has optimized or how he has basically improved the responsiveness of the game, right? So similarly on the game design side also, right? Designed, prototyped and play tested 5 game levels, enhancing player engagement, increasing average session duration by 10%. So now if you just look at this example, again, so most of the game designers, when we talk about, especially at an entry level, the mistakes that they do is, they would say, hey, I know how to create it, how to design a game, how to create a level, how to create progression mechanics and all of it. But they really don't know the objective of why they are doing one particular thing. Imagine if the hiring manager comes up saying that, hey, why don't you design a feature for a live ops game? So they have to come up with a purpose of why am I doing this feature? So what is the whole reason, whole purpose of this feature is all about? So that's really, really important. So now this makes them understand, the hiring manager or the recruiter makes them understand, okay, we need not spend a lot of time with this person. So he knows what he's doing. Or she knows what she's doing. So it's all about now verifying or validating whether they really have that skill set or not, and they're just getting them on board to the team, right? You're making their job more easy. Okay, so the next one, this is really, really important. I mean, I just touched on 3 different aspects so far, which are kind of very broad at a skill set level and also at a as a person individually at your level. So which is an email ID and then summary followed by your experiences, the responsibilities that you would be defining. But majority of the problem that comes in is like you have got super duper responsibilities and you have great achievements and you really got a very, very formal email ID. So probably you must have tried multiple variations, you didn't get it, you bought a custom domain and you got your personal email ID. But if the following things are not there in the resume, again, this is a game changer, right? So this is very, very important. So avoiding the typos and the bad formatting that we often do. I mean, I would say that majority of the resumes today we look at, out of them, 85% of them will have some problem or the other in these regards. And I would say, like, there was a larger problem 2-3 years back, but in recent 2-3 years, due to the current templates available, like a lot of resume builders are there, they're solving a problem, but there is a problem in a solution that they're offering. Could be is like which, as a user, we are not understanding. For example, there is a template, and that template has a challenge to accommodate certain level of, there is a limitation of characters. If it's too blank, you try to increase your font size. So the first problem I talk about the inconsistent font size. So please make sure you outline your resume beforehand. The reason I'm saying this is because before you build your resume, please try to take, even if it is taking you 3-4 hours, spend on it, because that is the first thing that goes out to studios. Like that is your first touch point in a studio. So that is how you are introduced with your resume introduces you, right? So mind map, what is that is going to be there in my resume. So when you mind map all of it, try to understand what would be a heading, what could be a subheading, and what could be a normal text, and then define what sizes do I need to have for headings and subheadings and normal text. So that standardization will create a very beautiful visual appeal. Even though you don't use any colors, keep it simple, but still it looks good. The second one is the poor alignment, the poor alignment that we do, right? So few things, like as I told you, probably you might have your skills aligned horizontally, and few things you have kept vertically, right? So you need to be very clear in the resume. There has to be a flow. So because we read the information from top to bottom, and you should not create any distraction or deviation in terms of how I behave the moment I start your resume looking at, right? So that's very important. So the intentions are very important. So left align, center align, or you're doing a right align. So most of the people, what they do is they write a lot of paragraphs or pointers. They don't justify the content. So because if you justify the content, it looks very nice, and I could basically see that it's in a very boxy, in a fixture sort of a mode. If it is not done that way, but it would be very lost and very confusing. And this is very, very important. So people often try to get creative and trying to get that creative, right? So they would eventually start using too many colors or probably using fancy fonts. So that's a red flag. So please avoid using too many colors. I'm not saying don't use colors. Use colors, but use it very effectively. Probably you can choose a palette which complements your theme that you're picking up and try to take it accordingly. And also fonts wise, don't try to get fancy with the fonts. Keep it easy to read and very legible, like, wherein at any kind of a contrast, I could be able to understand what you have written, right? So that's very, very important. Next is the misspelled words. The way it is misspelled. So please avoid mistakes doing on the spellings part, right? Then is missing incorrect heading. So this is very important because, for example, let's take this problem happens especially when you are defining your education columns. So what happens is we do education when we are writing, probably you have to mention about your bachelor's degree that you've done or a master's degree that you've done. And then you must have done some courses in Udemy or elsewhere, right? So that's a separate heading, probably that is courses. So that's not your education. I mean, of course, that's part of an education, but if you basically have the distinctive way of putting it, right? So this reflects two things. One is your clarity of thought while you are trying to outline all of this. A. B is like, also it has an advantage of telling the recruiter or the hiring manager that this person is really passionate. He did study his bachelor's degree. Also alongside, he had the passion of learning it. So he spent extra time at Udemy, or probably he must Coursera or elsewhere to invest more time in it, right? So you have to, since that is important to highlight, right? So I've learned game design on Udemy and then YouTube probably, or I've attended a series of 10 masterclass and stuff like that. So this proves that you are very much invested in the process of getting this job. The next is grammatical mistakes. So a lot of people do this as well. This would basically change the whole context of the conversation that you are trying to engage with your audience. I mean, when I say audience here, so when I'm looking at a resume, I'm your audience, right? So I'm the target audience for you. So as a recruiter or probably the hiring manager. So therefore, please make sure you get a right correct grammar when you are writing your summary, or when you're writing your experiences, defining your projects or project descriptions and all of it. I hope so far we're clear. Am I going too fast or am I going too slow? Okay, cool. So now you might be thinking, so we're talking about the resume, we're creative people, what about portfolios, right? I would say portfolio is a very big topic for me to talk personally, because if you look at different, so in the games space itself, right, every role has a different workflow, and the way they have to put the portfolio is very different, from a game dev to design to art to animation, right? So the way we basically define it is very different thing. So what I did is I just collated few common things that can be applicable for all of these traits. But probably if you guys are interested personally knowing about it, about your own individual profile and portfolios, probably towards the end we can chat about it. So I would just do this in one quick slide and then we'll move to the next one. The essentials of having a portfolio that actually can get attention. So I would say this is very, very, I mean, if you ask me personally, more than resume, your portfolio is very, very important. If you are trying to get into games industry, or any creative industry for that matter, let it be animation, other than gaming I'm talking about. So of course gaming has an animation though, but I would say portfolio is really, really important. So that's going to be the deal breaker for you. So it's like your Instagram page, right? So it's like your Facebook or social interaction. So people love to get to your portfolio and then look at your resume, right? So yeah, first thing we'll start off with, show the best thing. Right? Because the first impression is the best impression. So the moment I look into your portfolio, what I would like to see is what is the best work. Try to put it in the front of the landing page of wherever you're building. So probably you might be building on Wix or ArtStation, or probably you might be using your custom domain. So wherever you're building, try to have your best work there. And when I say best work, don't just limit it to one thing. So please try to spend enough time getting your portfolio sharpened. The reason, we have seen, I'll give you an example. So we were working with a studio which is in Europe, and they had set up a shop in India. So they wanted to hire close to around 30 to 40 artists, exclusively 3D artists, for a very successful IPs. So when we started doing this drive, we have seen a lot of candidates saying that, okay, I have done character art, but when I look into their portfolio, they don't have that character art mentioned in it. And when we ask about it, hey, why is that you didn't put it? They say that, okay, I was busy. I did my character art for another company and I have an NDA signed up with them, so I cannot put it. So this is real problem, right? So when you have an NDA, you cannot put it on a public domain. But why can't you create one? I mean, I know that it might take a time. So hardly what you have to do it is, if you take a month's time and if you could spend 16 hours a week or 15 hours a week and start having at least one piece putting together in that 15 hours, it takes 4 weeks to have at least 4 good assets, right? And that would eventually land into a good job for you. So that's going to be mostly easiest one. And these people that I'm talking about, right? So they're very good artists. I'm saying these guys are experienced at 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 7 years, and they worked on good AAA titles. It's just that they get they get into the grind so much that they don't get time to again put this. So since you're at an entry level, for example, or you are just having 2-3 years of time for now, 2-3 years of experience as of now. So I would say that at this point in time, try to create a good portfolio that starts a better showcase. So eventually you need not redo it time and again, right? So that's very important. So have at least 3 to 5 strong projects showcased. Second one is the playable builds or demos. I would say a lot of game devs. So this is, okay, we did a workshop very recently, and in that there was a dev who was asking, so is it really important to have a portfolio for a game developer? I would say yes, it is really, really required. Not just for game developer, for any profession, I would say you need to have some showcase of your work, which is a proof of your skills, right? So that you can basically showcase. So here, when I say playable demos, you can eventually put up some team projects. Probably let's say you participate in a game jam, you build something together, you're a 3D artist, there's a game dev, there's a designer, you guys can have a build ready, put it somewhere, like you can either use APKs, or there are a lot of web browsers on the itch.io, you can have your games over there as well, where people can come and explore, right? So try to have that, but I would say it's good to have, but I would say that, try to make sure you could able to get that. That's the best thing you would ever have. Next is, this is breakdowns in processes. So as we discussed in the beginning, in the resume part, right, on the summary and in the experience, we're talking about the achievements, the notable achievements that you have achieved, or we've discussed about the impact that you've created. So that has given an idea about, as an individual, as a professional, what is that you possess as a skill at a high level. But now this is the time you basically can take it even more with a better depth, right? So for example, if you're a 3D artist, so as a 3D artist, what you can do it is probably you can have you built an asset, a very nice asset, right? So first you try to have a concept of that asset. How did you come up with the concept? And then try to showcase the blockouts. Then you can have the the sculpting the way you did it. So how did you got the polygons, like, how the accuracy of it is, what is the poly count of it is, and then how did you do the UV wrapping to it, and how you got the texturing for that particular piece. If possible, if you have done a rigging, so try to add that part as well. Right, and if you are an animator also, it's a similar process of breaking down in terms of how you've done. So how did you collect the requirement? So in terms of when you have to animate an asset, what is the requirement that you got in the first place, and then probably how did you rig it, how did you skin it, then how did you add the keyframes to it, right? So those are the things. I mean, just to give you a context of what I meant as breakdowns, because these breakdowns gives a clarity again to the hiring managers when they look at your portfolio. This guy understands the whole the funnel that I should really be working, because major problem with entry level or at I would say 0 to 2 years experience, majority of the apprehensions hiring managers would have is, okay, do I need to, how much time should I spend on this person to get to my quality, the quality that I want to produce for this game. So this all will add points. This will basically prove a point saying that I'm different from the rest of the crowd. So I'm going to do this. I've already done it. So it takes less time for me to learn your process and get to speed, right? So that's exactly we're doing it here. Clear? Any questions here so far? I hope you're clear. Oh, cool. Right. So next part we're going to go is like jobs of strategy. So far we discussed about resume, we discussed about portfolio and all, right? So by the end of the day, these are going to be your first touch point. So this is not going to eventually land you into a job. So now you need to basically, you created your resume, it's ready, your portfolio is ready. So now how are you going to search for it? So there is two ways. One is organic way, one is inorganic way. So I would say, I would love if you could get organic inquiries. So organic inquiries are nothing but, in my way when I look at it, so you have a portfolio, I go discover portfolio. So this is how we do it. I mean, just giving you the way we hunt people, we discover people is, I have a team whose dedicated job is to start going through the portfolios on ArtStation. So they just keep scrolling ArtStation and they try to start reaching out to people whenever they like their work, right? So that's an organic way that you are trying to attract that inbound talent. Sorry, inbound job inquiries, right? So that's an organic way. So we will talk here the inorganic way. So if you get the portfolio right, if you get the resume right, so you would have majority of the percentage is organic. Now, from an inorganic perspective, but also I would say it's not pure play inorganic, but there is slightly, it's going to add fuel to your organic push. So one is very important. Before we get there, first we will again recap and re-summarize what we've discussed, right? So when you are starting a job search and when there's an opportunity that you spot, the first thing I would say is like, try to do research about that particular organization or that particular job. The reason I'm saying this is because we have seen a lot of people who try to apply for a job, but they really don't have any clue about it. I mean, what they're applying for, what kind of company is it. It's just that they know is there's a role. There's a 3D artist or there's an animator, but they really don't know what is this about and what this company is about and what do they do. So as I said, tailored resume. So this tailored resume is nothing but we discussed it earlier, right? So we need to customize it according to the need, as I said. Now let's imagine if you are a 3D artist, for example, if it's a company which produces cartoon series, over there if you're a 3D artist versus a 3D artist at a game studio, the title is same, but the scope of work is very different. Because over there you try to build assets at a high poly, but here you do it at a low poly. The workflow over there is very different. So over there probably you might not do an excessive optimization, but here in the games you really got to do a lot of optimization. So a lot of other things, moving parts here. Right? So therefore that's very, very important. The research helps you. So according to that research, you're going to tailor your resume. then apply wisely. So I would say this is the biggest problem biggest problem when I mean in today's day, if I go on LinkedIn, post a job that, hey, listen, I'm hiring a fresher or I'm hiring an intern, I would start getting profiles who are 6 years experience, 7 years experience, 4 years experience also, right? And okay, to some extent I can say that these people might be open, okay, this could be a new opportunity, they want to apply. But still, look at the irrelevancy I'm talking about. There are few roles where we're looking for a senior artist, or probably we're looking for an art director. I would still see that, like, grads passing out applying for it. So is that a problem? Yes, it's a problem. And how it impacts as a problem is, if you largely look at this, right? So for example, we work in games exclusively. I kind of like start getting these profiles time and again at 2-3 instances. At a 4th, 5th instance, I would stop spending my time on the profile and portfolio. So there could be a high chance that I might have a relevant opportunity at one point in time, but still I might not be having you on top of my mind, because I might consider you as a spammer. Like, you've been spamming me for the jobs that I'm posting. So think of, like, as a recruiter, if I could feel like this, so at a studio level, what is happening there, right? So try to be very cautious while you apply. Please, apply when you really feel that, hey, listen, I really have this skill and it matches to my whole skill set that I have been practicing, and then you apply for it. And there is 70% chance, 60% chance still you think you're confident about, you can do it. But just don't do it for the sake of applying it. Okay, so yeah, so this is where we're going to talk about what are the ways. I'm sure you guys must be knowing it, but however, I just thought of recapping the whole thing with a different angle. First thing, what you can do is you can look at the job boards. Like, probably, I don't know how many of you know, ArtStation has a job board. So a lot of jobs are listed on ArtStation at an international level. So in games, there is a platform called Hitmarker, so which is exclusive to games. Then you can use LinkedIn as a platform to discover more studios and opportunities over there. So this is kind of few names I'm saying, so but there are a lot more that you can find it on the internet. So second is the career pages of the studios. So try to look out what studios that you are really passionate about. So don't go buzzing them for every job that they show up. Because as I told you in the previous case, right? So when you start doing it, the ATS has an algorithm to understand how frequent I'm applying and what is my success rate, right? So now these days ATSs are built in such a fashion that I might basically get the whole context of a resume the moment I receive it. So I know that where for which department I'm mapped, for what happened in that particular department and all. And when we show up the desperation of applying every time, so there are high chances that you might basically be not getting a call from the studio. Next is the communities. Like, there are a lot of communities on Discord, there are a lot of communities on Reddit, and also there are a lot of WhatsApp communities which you basically can join and start trying to discover jobs over there. Finally, like recruiters like us, Goalrify, as I said, like, we specializes in that particular field of games. So you guys can explore opportunities through recruiters. So you can have that one-on-one conversations with them. What they can do is, the best part with the recruiters is, for example, if you ask me, the moment I speak to some candidate, I really know that, okay, this guy is having these skills. Whenever I get an opportunity next time, I start reaching out this person. So try to start making that relationship with the recruiters in the space. Clear? Okay. So we'll move to the next slide. This is really important. I'm sure we're discussing this because you guys are here. So the attending events really matter. So please try to attend. Like, if you are really passionate about games, you want to really make something big in games. There's an event in India that happens called IGDC, India Game Developer Conference. Not just that, so there are a lot of other conferences that happens. India Game Developer Summit happens now. If you look at this event as well, like, it has the exclusive track for games. So try to attend as many as possible gaming events. The reason why I'm saying this is, in these events, there are two things that happens. Of course, you get knowledge by attending good sessions, like the way sessions happen since morning, right? One is A in games, and then there was one more by X-Ray Insomniacs. I'm sure you must have attended that, right? So this gives you a context, a perspective, how the industry is heading, what kind of tools that they're using, how they're using them, how they're putting them to use, how the big games are shipped. And alongside, you happen to network with the decision makers. When I mean decision makers, in the sense, so you might bump into a head of studio, you might bump into VP engineering, you might bump into somebody who's heading the creative front of the studio, right? You can have conversations, you can tell them, hey, I'm looking for a job, this is what I do. You can showcase them the portfolio, you can get your portfolio reviewed by them directly at these events. That's one advantage. Number two is, like, if not, in a worst case, the downside of that is you might get a referral, or you might basically get knowledge. You will earn better knowledge. So next time you actually can put this knowledge to use in finding another opportunity. Next is the LinkedIn outreach. So try to be as active as possible on LinkedIn. Start reaching out to studios and people at the studios, but don't try to randomly buzz people. The reason I'm saying this time and again is because see, sometimes what happens is you're buzzing them and they might again consider you that you're spamming them with too much of messages or too much of information that you're asking for. So try to make a list. Okay, here are my dream studios. These are my 10-15 studios that I'm really really trying to get into. And then identify who are those people that I can actually talk to. And these people should be helpful for your career. So they should be able to navigate you to land into a job. Not eventually they should really hire you right then, but at least the conversation should help you understand how does the workflow happens there. So what tools they do use, what kind of engine they have, what culture they basically have. So all of it you can start learning, and that's how you can start making that conversation going through them. So then the referrals part. So same thing. The extension of LinkedIn outreach, not necessarily just LinkedIn, the events, from events also you can get references. From LinkedIn also you can get references. So try to leverage references. Or probably you must have graduated from a school, your alumni would have been working in few of those studios. Try to have conversations with them. Try to express your interest. Get your portfolio and resume reviewed. So just don't go bang them, say that, hey, listen, I'm looking for a job. So probably what you can do it is in a soft tone, you can send a profile and resume. You can ask them, do you mind review this and help me with your feedback? So this basically opens up a dialogue. So try to have that conversation open rather making it closed one. Okay? So yeah, so far it's good. So we have a next slide just to make sure we are all following and we are all awake as well. So I'm just checking on myself whether I'm making you guys bored or not. Can you guys scan this QR code and let me know what job search strategy you think will be most effective for you? Okay, so networking, yeah. So I would say networking is always works. That's my tool, I would say. That's a go-to tool. That's where beyond work, beyond skills, we get to know the person who is genuinely what that person is all about. Yeah, I guess we all aligned, I feel, in terms of, we're looking at these results, I would say. I'll move on to the next slide quickly because I guess towards the end we're going to do a small interactive sort of a session, which essentially would be like talking about few common questions, interview questions that we're looking at. So I can move to the next slide? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is really important. Now, if you look at the first step, what we did is we got a resume sorted. We've got to know how to have a portfolio properly planned, and then finally we looked at how should we identify the opportunities. So you've done all of this. Now, what is very, very important is your interview preparation. So how are you going to prepare for interviews, right? So this is really, really important, and this is where actually we're getting into the momentum of our conversation now. I would say first thing people do a mistake is not optimizing their social presence. When I mean social presence, I'm not talking about Instagram, I'm not talking about Facebook or something of that sort. I'm talking about two things again majorly. One is your LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is really, really important. So what happens, we get a resume ready, but we forget to synchronize that resume with our LinkedIn profile. So when I mean synchronizing, when I say that, so you created an amazing summary, and that summary is not there on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn also works like a search engine. So when I go type skills Unity, I mean that's how as a recruiter I go search, right? So I try to search Maya, I try to search ZBrush, or I would search Blender. So when I type that, it looks for the keywords in your profile and it starts showing up. So it works similar to a search engine. So if you're not optimizing your LinkedIn profile, you're losing a lot of opportunities there itself. And on top of it, LinkedIn also helps you as a social proof. When I mean a social proof, so let's take you added a profile and you got everything in sync with it. And probably you must have added your company, tenure, duration, everything, right? So when it is legit, that's when people do it. Otherwise, you will not go claim, okay, for example, you're studying now, or you must be working for a small indie studio, but you will not go write that, I work for PlayStation or I work for Zynga, right? So you basically claim what you've done. And probably people also legitly validate that. I mean, like validate in the sense, how does the validation also happen is, how well are you connected with the same industry folks? That gives the second validation for me. So when I look at a profile, so I also look at the common connections. Who are the common connections, or who are the second degree connections? Let's imagine you are a 3D artist or you're a game dev, and when I go look at your connections, probably I'm seeing somebody from a pharmaceutical industry, majority of it. Or I'm seeing somebody who are from a real estate background. So I feel probably there is something fishy in this profile. So I might not take that profile so seriously. So therefore, make sure, try to add relevant connections. Just don't try to add random connections on LinkedIn. Make sure you have right people's network that is tapped into. And as I said, keep it updated. The next one is, like, again, build a portfolio. So we've already discussed about this building a portfolio thing, but here the emphasis of having a portfolio is like, again, now you got your resume and that is synced with your LinkedIn, and the same can also be synced with your portfolio as well. So a lot of people build portfolio. They will not have, so the email ID in your resume is different from your portfolio and in LinkedIn. So there are 3 different email IDs. As a recruiter, I don't know where to reach out to you. That is number one problem. Now, number 2 problem is, I am really not sure which email ID is active for you. And also the problem as a job seeker for you could be is like, you might be getting 3 different job requests from 3 different studios at 3 different places. So there is no one common place to tap into, one common tab to look into what kind of opportunities or what kind of people are reaching out to me, right? So this is really important to have those 2 things in sync with your profile and the email IDs that you're using. Then trying to be active in the community, as I said, so try to join Discord servers, try to be part of Reddits, try to be part of WhatsApp and Telegram groups as well. So there a lot of discussion happens on different subjects, different topics. So you never know, your future employer can be from those groups. So they might basically say that, hey, listen, this guy always show up whenever I talk about design. This guy show up whenever we talk about development. So why don't I go talk to him? Right? So that's how the organic traffic comes to your profile. Right? So please try to be active. So when you are, it's not just while searching for jobs, but eventually, so keep this activity going so that you keep hearing and getting to know about better opportunities in future, and that helps you propel your prospects. The next is, this is again, we go a little deeper now. So earlier we discussed about researching about a company and opportunity, right? So we discussed that about a job description level. So now what happened is, you got your resume right, you've applied for a job, the recruiter found you interesting, or hiring manager shortlisted your profile, now you have an interview setup. So what is that you're going to do? And here is the biggest problem majority of them would do is, they would just assume, okay, I have an interview, I might be asked questions about, probably about my experience. No, it's not like that. So it won't work that way. So first you got to understand about the studio. So what is the studio about? So how the studio is placed, what kind of games they make. So every studio will have a unique value proposition in terms of what they're making. For example, Zynga, if you look at it, so Zynga started as a building social games. So they've been making a lot of games for Facebook, and then eventually they started pivoting to mobile games, and they're big enough in mobile space. But wherein if you look at studios like PlayStation, for example, or Rockstar, so they might not be building games for mobile. So they will be working for different hardware. So the moment the hardware changes, the whole interview conversation will also change. I mean, that has an impact, right? So try to do more research about the company, try to understand what kind of games they're making, and also, for example, now there would be games, there could be studios building games exclusively focused for mobile. But there could be building different genres of games, right? Few of them will work on only match 3 sort of mechanics. Like the way we have King makes like games, there could be a studio working on some different genre for that matter, right? So you need to understand what kind of games also they make. The second part is the culture part. So what culture do they have in the company? So what is that they prioritize for? So this also gives you a lot of importance. Like there could be a studio which talks about a lot of work-life balance. There could be a studio which talks about work-life integration. There could be a studio who talks about like different aspects of your life, or different aspects from the creativity perspective also. Like if you could recollect, like, you know, there was an advocacy that people were talking from a game design perspective in terms of regulating the screen time and stuff like that, right? So you need to understand those cultural important pointers there. Then is the role. So role is the biggest part here. You've done the company's research, you've done the culture wala research. Now when it comes to role, you have to narrow down in that particular role, what is that they're asking? What am I going to build here? I mean, if you're a dev, am I being hired to write a code for the UI, or am I writing something gameplay system, or I'm going to write something which is basically AI related? The game has a native AI in it, right? So I'm sure you guys must be aware about it. I'm not talking about the Gen AI wala thing. So I'm talking about game AI systems, right? So, or am I working on the backend system of the game? So probably, am I working on the multiplayer part of the game? So you need to understand what is this role is demanding me for. Then next is going to be the tech stack. So when I mean tech stack in the sense, the role demands what skills. So if imagine you're a 3D artist. So what kind of softwares are they using? So are they using Maya or they're using Blender? So is it so because like you've got to understand what tools they have. So or they're using Substance Painter for texturing. So what is that they're particularly using it? Or probably from a game developer's perspective, is it being built on Unity, or is it being built on Unreal? Or probably if you, for example, you are applying for a studio like Rockstar. So Rockstar uses their own proprietary engine. So it's basically Rockstar's advanced game engine. So that's built on C++. So you might expect more questions on C++. Similarly, if you look Ubisoft has their own Anvil game engine. So you need to research on the tech stack as well, right? Clear? Okay, so we'll move to the next slide. Okay, so these are the best practices, I would say, and these are kind of very close to my heart. The reason is that majority of the candidates gets either, companies try to not reapproach them or probably try to avoid such candidates. So number one is people who ghost. Please don't, so ghost, I mean to say, I'm just trying to define ghost in the sense like not responding to emails, not responding to calls or any sort of a communication. So people counter argue this statement saying that recruiters also ghost. Recruiters also don't respond to calls or mails. So I don't want to get into that counter argument here. We can have a conversation at a later part, but all that I can tell you is it's all about the importance and priority of it. So imagine if you want to really make your career, if you are building something, so probably you should live by your own rule book. So it doesn't mean that since recruiters don't respond, I will also don't respond. So that's not how things will work in life, right? So I would say the reason why I'm saying don't ghost, all that it takes is, for example, if you're not interested in something that they're asking for, you have to tell them that I cannot do it. That's it. And probably you can give a reason, sir, this is the reason I cannot do it. So keep the conversation open and then close it there. Instead trying to ghost them, not answering the calls, so that looks very unprofessional because that defines going forward what happens if there is a critical mission that you have to be part of as part of a job and you start ghosting them, the whole production will be at risk, right? So that's how the judgment happens over there. Next is assignments. So we've seen that majority of the assignments are usually students or people at 0 to 2 years of experience don't take up assignments. They basically have an impression saying, I have done so many assignments, but I haven't got shortlisted. So they will be afraid that these assignments will not get me anywhere. So without an assignment, you will not get anywhere. So that's the truth. That's the reality. Okay. So the reason I'm saying this is because in today's day, if you take game dev, if you take a game artist or animator, so assignment is very, very mandatory. Now, there is a different way to look at this. So if you think, so nobody has time to give you an assignment, follow up with you and get your assignment and then don't hire. So the whole intention is to hire you, but it's just that probably you must not have met the criteria. And also on top of it, since they must have basically not communicated back to you, that's a problem. So therefore you need to take an initiative, just write an email. Hey, listen, I've done an assignment. I really need to hear about my feedback, right? So whether it is yes or no, that's okay. At least take that initiative, complete the assignment, ask for the feedback. Now, I said the flip side of this is like, even though if you don't get a job, but one thing, the best part of that doing assignments is you will improve your proficiency of the tools that you work on. So you will basically you will try to get different real-time problems that studios are trying to solve in their games, and you try to, you make sure that, you're trying to start building something of that sort. So this gives you a lot of edge in terms of learning, and that way you can actually get your portfolio better. I told you that 16 hours a week, 16 hours a week that you spend over a weekends, right? So that time can be spent, instead spending 16 hours over there, you can do the assignments, get a better skill and try to refine your portfolio there. It's all about how can you turn this to your advantage, rather complaining about it, right? The next part is like asking questions. So majority of them ghost or they don't do assignments because of this one problem. So imagine if I send an assignment to you guys, right? So what you do is, okay, I'll do it. That's it. So now you might try genuinely to do the assignment, because when you're looking for a job, obviously you want to get a job. So you will give a try. So that benefit of doubt I 100% will have. But you might not end up achieve it, probably because you must have lost with some problem while doing that assignment. So before starting the assignment, try to understand, okay, so this is the assignment, this is what I should do, so these are my skills. What if I don't do this? What are the problems? Try to list those problems. Then go back, talk to the recruiter, tell them that, hey, listen, I have this list of questions to understand, or probably you might estimate that it might take 2 weeks for you instead 1 week. So they must have given you a week's time, but it might eventually, you think with your proficiency, it might take more time for you. So go ask them graciously saying, hey, listen, I need more time. And if you are really hesitant, I mean, like this is a cheat code since I will tell. So if you're hesitant that 2 weeks might sound too long and recruiter might deny, you can just tell them that I've looked at the assignment, I can do it, but right now I have some personal plans, like maybe I'm traveling or there's a family commitment that I have. I might not be starting right away, but I would certainly start it in next few days. When I start, I'll let you know, and from there in a week's time, I'll submit it. Right? So that's the easiest way to put it. But you need to basically see that how can you get that conversation going. To have that conversation going, you should ask questions. And sometimes there could be, that briefs could have been very broad briefs. Hiring manager must have created the brief for your assignment from their experience level, right? So they must not have calculated or calibrated edge cases, which at a junior level could have been difficult for you to meet those things. So that point in time, you have to escalate and tell that, hey, listen, these are the points that I'm little concerned about. So do we have a relaxation on that? So keep that conversation going and then make sure that assignments are done. And this is another problem, I would say. So when I say know your worth, right? So what I mean to say is majority of the time when let's imagine, since we initially shown Aditi, right? So if I reached out Aditi for a job, when I ask her, hey Aditi, what's your expectations are? What is that you're looking as of now to get into this? So they would say that, hey, listen, I want to make 6 lakhs. I want to make 8 lakhs. That's how they come up with. So for example, I understand that this role is kind of max 4 lakhs. I mean, when I'm talking about an entry level person or a less than 1 year person, so I know that, okay, this could be this could possibly be around 4 lakhs or max 5 lakhs. But there is a gap of like 3 lakhs there, right? So over there, when we ask a question, why do you need so much? The reason behind asking this question is to understand your personality, but not to really know the reason why you want 8 lakhs. So the recruiters try to calibrate, how do you calculate this? Like what kind of person you are? So if you say that my friend works in this particular studio, they make this much, that's the reason I'm asking. That's a clear no. I mean, that's a red flag. Or there could be an answer, I need this because I have seen like industry is paying this much. So when you quote this industry is paying this much, it's a very broad phrase. When I mean broad phrase, if I again take back the example of studios in India, so let's take a studio like Zynga, the way it pays versus an indie dev pays is very different. And the nature of work that you do over there is also very different. So therefore, you need to basically have a right calibration when you ask. So here, the way I look at it is like, I'll go to a next point and then I'll put these two things together. So the negotiate wisely wala part, right? So when I say these two things, right? So you need to basically understand what are you optimizing this for. So when you are asking 8 lakhs, so you're trying to optimize your effort, time, or your experience. A. B is like, you also need to understand what is this opportunity is all about. So probably in the early days of time, so it's not just about money and salary. I know that probably you must be having commitments financially also to meet. So probably that is triangulating you to ask that much. There is no denial about it. But also you need to understand this. First 4 years of your experience, first 4 years in your career is really important to compound your skill set, compound on your experience and deliverables. So eventually that will start helping you, have that slingshot in your compensation after that 4 years part. Because once you start getting that visibility, if you try optimize value right from day one, at a very early stage of your career, probably like, you might land into jobs at few places where they might be ready to pay you more, but eventually that job might not last longer because the behavior of spending as of date, if you look at majority of the startups laying off that happens is they must have hired people at a higher packages, and eventually since the deliverables didn't happen, they had to let them go. And if this happens in your career in the beginning 4 years, imagine in 4 years, imagine a resume which has 4 years of experience with 3 jobs. Right? That's a clear red flag. I mean, the moment hiring manager looks at it, like they feel that this guy is a job hopper, so it's better to avoid this person. Right? So don't get into that kind of a problem right from the beginning. So that's the reason, try to understand your worth. I mean, when I mean your worth, I'm not trying to measure it in a very mean way here. I just wanted to make a bold statement, know your worth here. So try to calibrate saying, okay, this is what I want to make, a bare minimum. But try to double down on learning phase. Like when the opportunity that you're exploring, try to understand how much value this opportunity can give me to add into my profile. So will this give me a visibility? So few projects you could be working with the leadership teams, for example, or you're working on a flagship game that might have a global visibility, and that could reflect on your profile too. So which might boost your next prospects of future projects, future jobs that you're going to take up. So try to double down on right things and optimize it for the right things, rather just calculating or calibrating on the monetary value of it. So that's where the know your worth and negotiate wisely part is. This is respect the process. The reason this point has come up here is we have seen a behavior so I would say like last 14 years I've been hiring. I've been hiring for products. If you see a lot of unicorns today, so we basically worked for such companies before we were doing it in games. So the behavior of the people that we have seen largely is like when someone gets a negative feedback, I mean negative in the sense I mean to say outcome is negative. So you are rejected. So you are not shortlisted. Your test is not up to the mark. So rather people asking for a feedback why it went wrong, or probably saying, okay, what is that I can improve to get this better? People get in a defense mode. So they say that, hey, I know that you are an indie startup. Eventually, I'm not also interested to work with you. That's okay. I know this. Even if I would have shortlisted, I will not join you. So this is one kind of people I'm talking about. The other kind of a people, what they would do is like, oh, you did so much of like so lengthy process. I've gone through 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds, and now you coming and telling me that I'm not shortlisted. I know that there is no empathy there, but at least all that you can do it is put that effort of asking in a polite fashion. So we've invested together so much of time. Really appreciate if you could let me know what went wrong, so that I can just make sure it basically is taken care of. Or probably you can also check that what is it not aligning with the role that I don't have, because you've invested so much time in it, right? So try to have that open-ended questions, respecting that eventual process that actually can reopen your doors again, having that conversation. Yeah, so that's about the best practices part. Next is the purpose of why studios ask questions. I mean, like the way I told you in Aditi's case, right? So when she says 8 lakhs, why do you need 8 lakhs? So there's always a purpose. There's a question behind that. I mean, I wanted to understand as a hiring manager or as a recruiter. So similarly, so they want to see, the first part is how prepared you are. I mean, when they basically talk to you, right? So I'm sure a lot of entry-level folks will get to know a question which is, what do you know about us? What do you know about a studio? What do you know about our games? So when they ask these things, they really want to know, are you prepared enough, or have you invested yourself into this process or not? Or probably they might ask, okay, what are the latest things that are happening around Adobe Maya? What are the new things, new features that are coming? So they just want to know how prepared you've come for the interview. next is the authenticity. So when they ask things to you, right, so they also wanted to see, are you fabricating? Or when I say fabrication in the sense, like sometimes they wanted to know your personality very truly. I mean, who you are as a person, as an individual, right? So that's something naturally you can put it. So don't try to mug it up things, because when you start mug up something and then go there and present it, even though you know it, it might basically sound that you have basically rehearsed it too many times, and probably that could not be you truly. So you might basically get low points there. Therefore, please make sure, don't mug it up. Try to have that proper reasoning and try to showcase yourself, who you are in a true sense. Self-awareness. So this is a big problem. Self-awareness is a big problem. When I say this is probably I'll give you a very common example. For a fresher, if you ask them how do you rate yourself on communication skills on a scale of 1 to 5, so they would say I rate 5. I mean I rate 4. I rate 3.5, and they would be hardly making a sentence there. Or probably if you look at a portfolio of some artist and then say that, hey, how do you rate yourself on a particular skill set on a scale of 5? They might just say, okay, I will rate this much. So I'm saying that I know that like from your knowledge perspective, with your knowledge graph, you might think you are at that level. But again, you need to compare. So that's where in the first slide of this interview preparation, I said, try to learn about the games that they're building, try to learn about the culture of the company, try to learn about the style of work that they're doing. So you need to benchmark your portfolio when you're rating this with your portfolio, and then start rating. Now don't just say that, okay, I'm bad at it. So for example, if I ask you a question saying, okay, how would you rate yourself, and I know that I am very bad at it and I might just rate 1 here. So you can say that with the quality of games that you're producing, and with that kind of an artwork, probably I would rate it myself 1, but eventually I can improve this, and in next 6-7 months I can basically get at least 2.5 and 3 like that, and then you can start telling how can you get it. So we'll get to that point. Maybe eventually I have a next slide just explaining you about how we can have these kind of answers so that we get that right balance. So next is teamwork. So they ask a lot of questions in terms of, have you participated in game jams, or what kind of projects have you done in your college time and all. So they want to know about your skill set. They want to know about your how do you basically handle things, and as a team, like are you a team player or not? I mean, like they will try to evaluate, like have you participated in team events in your projects, in game jams. So this basically gives a proof saying, okay, this person can be a team player, so I can add him to my team. So again, so extension of the team is like conflict resolution. So when I say conflict resolution, so when you work as a team, so let's imagine there are 3 different people coming together. There's an artist, there's a designer, there's an animator, there's a developer. So you must be not having one common agreeable point on few things, right? So there could be an argument in terms of art direction. There could be an argument in terms of picking the genre of the game, or probably a particular asset that you're working on, or the theme that you'd be choosing. So in that situations, how would you handle? I mean, like how you would cope up with each other, and how do you basically get to an agreeable terms where the project would kickstart eventually. It will not get halted just because of that conflict, right? So they just want to see whether you have that conflict resolution ability or not. So this is very important, the non-verbal cues. So non-verbal cues are something that plays a very big role on a behavioral aspects of any individual that they try to evaluate. So I'll give you a very simple scenario. Let's take that in a room where you're talking to 3 different people, and you heard designation saying that somebody is a vice president, someone is a manager, and someone is just at a peer level. Now when someone is asking a question, the peer level person, who can be your peer once you join, so if he asks a question, so probably you need to make sure you look at that particular person and have that eye contact and have that conversation going, rather looking at the vice president of the company, because you might think, okay, this guy is going to make the decision. It's not like that. So they will try to evaluate what could be your, so these are all behavioral aspects that I'm talking about when they are evaluating you. Not just this one, but also there are a lot of other things in terms of a lot of people try to procrastinate a lot. So just avoid those things as well when you having that conversation going there. Yeah, so this is about the interview preparation part. I mean, like the do's and don'ts we discussed. And now the next part is a little bit of interactive sort of a thing. I might need people to help me here, and also it's a mutual help. We're doing help with each other. Right, so we're going to talk about the interview questions, but I'm really sorry I could not put all the questions here considering the time. But what I did is I took 4 questions which can be common for every profession, I would say. Like, could be a developer, could be an animator, could be an artist, anybody for that matter. So it's going to be very common for all of this. And how we're going to do this is also, I'm just going to help you what is the agenda behind asking this question. So when I'm asking this question, or when a hiring manager asks you this question, so there is always, I told you, right? So every question has a question behind, which they're trying to evaluate in you, who you are, kind of a thing. So similarly, we're going to deconstruct all of it, which could eventually help you get a better answers for yourself if you are going for a next interview. Okay, the first one is, what are your strengths? So the way we do it is, like, probably you guys can answer this first. What would be your answer probably, and then we will take the next one. So who wants to answer it first? What are your strengths? If anyone asks in the interview question, what are your strengths, what will be the answer? Nobody wants to answer? Okay.
Yeah, so I would say strong problem-solving skills.
Okay.
Okay, and then, a different approach to problem solving using, latest technology, if it's AI or something like that.
Okay, like for example, now it's a simulation. So now when I say what are your strengths, so what is your answer for it?
You are taking for me for a role of simulation, something like that.
Yeah.
So I would say I will integrate like AI, or I'll solve that problem using AI, or I'll make a simple solution which can be automated in future also, which can help you out, reduce the man force working on it. So something like that, I can approach them, and they might be also like, this guy is reducing the man force and can be resourceful.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? No one? Okay, cool. So first, so thanks for volunteering. I would say, the answers were kind of crisp, but I would say it needs a little bit of context. So we'll just have the approach to it, right? So first you need to understand, why am I asking this question to you, right? So I just want to understand, like, how aware you are about yourself in terms of your strengths that you possess, right? And then the next part is, I will measure, like, does this strength map to my role that I'm hiring you for? So, like, that is the right part you picked up, the integration of AI you said. So probably I might have that kind of scope in my work. So I try to map that particular piece of it. The next is, I would look at the evidence. So that evidence lacks. I mean, when you say, okay, I can integrate. Now, I am not seeing that you have evidently did that. So that's really, really important. So now, this is how, since I already answered it, it's the same thing that you will see on the slide now. So you will pick up a solution first, what is that your strength is going to be, and then you start trying to have that relatable, make it relatable to the context that we are having, and then give an example. Okay, have you really integrated AI elsewhere? In any of your project, you try to say that, okay, so when I say what are your strengths, so my strengths are in AI integration, where I have worked on a particular project where there was a need to integrate an AI to generate few context for the game. So something of that sort. There has to be always an example which defines an evidence that, okay, this person knows this, and that is what this person is claiming for. Right, and then you need to map this back to the role that we are hiring. So if you remember, in the interview preparation, we discussed about looking at the job description in detail, understanding what the job description need is all about. So like I'll now to just answer this, I'll take a game developer who has basically whose strength is probably multiplayer programming or probably writing socket programming. So the way he can say is like, I'm really good at multiplayer programming, wherein I've been writing a lot of socket networks, or I've created multiplayer games in my previous organization, which are basically cricket games. So I'm sure here what I could see is like you're building a similar sort of a multiplayer game, and I can use my strength here to build this in a better fashion. So I've used back there. So you can now turn around this to a question also. To have that conversation going on the strength. So the way how you build up the conversation is very important. So the way I do it is, first I would say strength, then I explain my previous history with that strength, and then I'll add the context how I can add value in my current job, and then I'll say that, hey, I worked on Photon and I used PlayFab, so what do you use here? I know that they use this because I've gone through the job description, right? So I could see Photon is written there, PlayFab is written there. So, but still I'm asking, hey, what do you use it here? So now what happens is you start having that conversation at that strength level. And that's how you're optimizing and navigating that conversation to the next stage. Similarly, we'll go to the next one. What is your biggest weakness? Anybody wants to answer this? No one wants to answer? Nobody wants to answer this? Okay, I don't want to pressure also. So what we're looking here is basically the honesty part. When I mean honesty here, a lot of people, when they talk about weakness, they talk a very random weakness. I mean, this is common for me, at least I would say majority of the interviews when we ask, and especially people at 0 to 2 years experience, what they do is, I trust people easily. So people cheat me easily. So this is a very common thing people often tell. Right? So, I don't think so, like if every time people, you're trusting people and being cheated, so which means the problem is with you, not with them. So that's a different story altogether. It's not people cheating you, it's basically, you're doing that mistake time and again. So then second part is the growth mindset they will see. So let's take, for example, you talk about a weakness, and now they will see that, hey, you mentioning it, it's okay, but what are you doing for it? I mean, like, are you working on that weakness, particular weakness to get better? So that's something that they try to track. Next is, so ability to recognize improvement. So probably when I say weakness, I need to understand why this particular weakness is with me. I mean, what's the problem? For example, let's take again, if I'm a developer, I know how to write a code probably, but I might not be writing a very optimized code, for example. So it could be because lack of clarity of multiple things, because I am good at syntax, I know what to write, I know about how to approach a problem, but I'm not solving it properly. That could be a case. Then how am I solving it? I am probably using lead code. I'm going there, doing a lot of exercises on lead code so that to improve there. Right? So that gives you the whole three things. First, I'm admitting that this is where I am weak at, and I know that these are the areas I need to improve, and to improve this, these are the exercises I'm doing. Eventually, I'll get better there. So that's exactly is what they want to know. So they are not really interested what is your exact weaknesses. They are all about trying to understand like what is your personality looks like, and how do you behave at certain things in project when it comes in real time. So so to give you a context in real time example, imagine that you're making a first person shooter game for mobile, right? And first person shooters are not so easy. And for an Indian market is something that has smartphones starting at 10,000 rupees with low level hardware, and we have hardware at a very high level. So now as a developer, I give you a challenge saying that I really want to build a FPS first person shooter game for a hardware that is coming at 10 to 15,000 rupees Xiaomi phones, right? You go figure it out and come back saying that, hey, I cannot do it. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's not possible, right? So that is not the reason you've been hired for. So you hired to basically come up with a solution. So therefore, then that comes there comes a thing. Hey, listen, I guess I'm not able to optimize it well. I guess we need to optimize these things to run this on this hardware. So we need to figure out a way how to do this. So they want to see that mindset. I mean, do you have that mindset or not? So that's the whole perspective of looking at the weaknesses. I mean, this is just one example. Please don't take this as this is every time the same example. It's just a context to make you guys understand. So this is, I already explained this. I'm sorry, I just didn't press enter here. We'll go to the next question. Okay. So this is this is very important. Like, can you tell me about a time where you failed? I mean, like people basically often, I would say, like 2 to 6 years of experience, people to some extent try to answer this, but 0 to 2 years, they would eventually say that I never failed. I mean, I mean, kind of like been like on a spree of winning every time. So no, it's not like that. I mean, I'm saying I'm not telling that create a story of failure just to prove a point, but I'm saying that here it's all about the learning. I mean, oh sorry. Okay, so what they're looking here is like, they want to basically understand when you say that I failed, they just wanted to understand, will you admit that, okay, I didn't do this, or probably this is the reason I must have failed. So it's all about admission. And then I told you in the earlier example, right? So if someone says that I've been trusting people and people cheat me, right? So that is a personality who has not learned anything out of the mistake that that person is doing. So same thing. So are you a person who can learn from your mistake? You can fail 10 times, but what are your learnings out of those 10 failures? Then the problem solving statement. I mean, problem solving mindset is very important. These 3 things that they see is, if you failed, for example, in the previous example of a first person shooter for mobile games for hardwares like 10 to 15,000, in that scenario, if you look at it, it's like kind of difficult to make it possible that objective of making hardware, I mean, making that game run on such hardware, right? So if you consider that as a failure, probably now we just wanted to know a plan of action. What is your learning out of this, and what would be your next step to fix that particular thing, right? So that's basically is what we're looking at. So yeah, this is the most important part. So sometimes what happens, people when they fail, let's imagine we build a game, we've been part of a game jam, we basically try to put together a great game, but unfortunately my designer was so bad and I could not have right mechanics, right? So that's the reason we failed. Or probably someone would say that, hey, listen, we teamed up, we tried to build a particular game, but our developer was not giving time and he was eventually looking for another job. So we could not ship the game. So you're just trying to blame someone else on your failure. So if that other developer was not available, you could have, if you're really passionate, you would have found somebody else to get that going, right? So that's something that they would also look at. So learn. So what is that, from that failure you've learned, and how you will improve that particular thing. So next is, since we discussed failure, so we will be discussing about the success. So what's your biggest success? So here, I'm not necessarily saying success doesn't mean that like you really need to boast that you received an award. So that's not a success as a definition here. That's a milestone. Winning an award or probably your game getting a lot of accolades it's basically a milestone. Success can be anything. So again, going back to previous example, same FPS problem for a cheapest hardware. Imagine you cracked at least, okay, I could not do it at a 10 to 15,000 hardware, but I could crack this for 15 to 20,000 hardware. Still, it's a decent achievement, right? So that could also be a success. So we'll talk about that. So why are we asking this particular question? So again, skill, so it will evaluate. So when I say at least you cracked that 15 to 20,000 wala problem, so it showcases that you have that proficiency of skills and you really know how to put those skills to use. You have tried optimizing it. So eventually if you keep working more on that, so that could further get you a better results. Next is the impact driven or result driven. So we will also see Are you that kind of a person who really drives for that impact? So do you have that motivation? Do you have that kick for doing things? Then next is, we will evaluate what is that you are really proud about. I mean, like, for instance, when I mean, like, few people will say success, is it a materialistic success, or it is a success that has real meaning in it, right? So that's something that would be evaluated here in this space. So again, answering is like, as I said, so like choosing a relevant descriptive adjective, and then basically talking about the outcome of that exercise that you've done, and then probably quantifying it. I mean, like, quantifying when I mean, so as I told you, right, so probably you must have failed for those hardwares, but you said, okay, 20 to 20,000 in between that kind of hardware you have achieved it. So which is kind of 2 GB RAM, or probably 4 GB RAM, or could be 8 GB RAM, without any dedicated graphics card, you could able to render a AAA title, right? So something of that sort. So that is kind of an impact which is quantifiable. I guess I'm done. So we'll just have, if you guys have questions, please, you can ask the same way, or otherwise you can scan it and put those questions over there. Yeah, you can ask if you want, no problem. So we'll move to the next slide. So in the meantime, as we answer the questions, please, you guys can scan this. So we have a brand new WhatsApp community you guys can join, where we share a lot of tips over there. And also there's a form to help us with the feedback of this session. So we keep doing this kind of sessions across on different topics. Since this was a very broad topic, I had to take a lot of time and have to cut a lot of information. But we do very dedicated topics. So if you guys want to join, you can let me know there. So one thing I told you, right? So if anyone wants to have a one-on-one session, so this is the QR code you can register for. So we can get on to one-on-one session. We can evaluate your profiles. We will evaluate your portfolios, and we'll try help you in case if we have to redefine it. So it's absolutely free. So we don't charge for that. So I'm just giving you beforehand. Yeah, please.
Hi, sir. You told about this research about the company, right? How should I gather information about a startup company?
Okay.
Like Google, anything, I didn't get any information.
Okay, so if you say, when you say startup, the two things that you can understand is, first, you need to basically, you're saying in a worst case scenario where they have no website.
Are reaching me.
Huh?
If they are reaching me.
Okay, they're reaching you, and it's a startup. So first thing is, like, first you need to, if they are reaching you, first you can ask them a question saying that, okay, what is this startup is all about? What kind of product are you building? In which space are you? So let's take, they're making a game. So what game is it? What is your current team size? Who are the founders? So is it investors backed or not? So you can ask the questions to the recruiter. And also, there could be another scenario. There could be a startup which will not even have a website in some cases. So in that case, what you can do it is, when you ask these questions, right? So they might be telling founder names. So you can basically go check their LinkedIn profiles. Who are these founders? From where they have come? So what kind of work they have done? So this also gives you a reference. I mean, if it's very early stage I'm talking about. But most of the time, at least you will find a website from where you can get information, or you can look at, though it is, if it's a startup that is invested, so you can also look at a validation from investors that has been published over there. Or from the games perspective, if you have to be very specific, as I told you, two things. If the data is not publicly available about their games, there could be a reason that could have been eventually be their first game. So for that reason, you need to first look at the credentials of the founders who are building this game. A. B is like also what genre of game that they're building, and how this particular genre is doing at that point in time. For example, they're making an open world RPG sort of a game. So how are these open world RPGs are doing? What are the problems with them? So this is kind of a secondary search that you're doing, very parallel to the game that they're building. At least still this will give you context to be ready for the game, ready for the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right. Sorry, don't mind if I'm sitting and discussing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, yeah. So coming to this ATS thing, okay, I have made a resume, okay, a portfolio resume, which was really attractive. So any in-person, whoever watches my resume, they are like, wow, it's great, okay. But coming to the ATS part, which we have discussed, it is not able to fetch the things. So coming across lot of job application on the websites, direct on their websites, I have realized lot of the ATS, okay, I think they have some version based or something. Some are parsing it really well. When I upload it, they'll parse my details properly below, all the fill in the blanks. And some, they actually lack. Instead of like the place where my name should be going, they'll be putting my job roles over there. So is it actually my fault, which I'm not able to get into the right position? Is it supposed to be like the technology which is causing my job inside?
Yeah, it's a technology thing. So different ATSs use different models to recognize the characters, the OCRs it's called. So sometimes what happens is they must have trained only on one kind of a sample data. Let's imagine if your name is in the center top header, is identified as name. Towards the left it's number. So they'll have specific templates. They must have trained only on those templates, and your template would have been a little different from the template the model got have trained. So that could have been the reason.
So now that is also a big issue in the industry.
Right.
I just wanted to point out that.
Right. So, but I would still say that this is certainly a big challenge. So that's the reason I would recommend a standard template initially, rather making it very fancy. Which is kind of a very regular structure of having a structured header and structured skill set, so that at least what happens is the indexing gets little clear. But these ATSs do two different jobs. One is first getting your data into the form, and number two is they will actually, so it has nothing to do with your name and all of it. So that's basically, you are still looking at your side. So behind the wall, what happens is it maps your skill set and your summary context with a job description and then start ranking you. So that's a different, so these are two different problem statements. So one is its ease of creating your profile, so that ATS is passing that information and loading it into the form to help you create a profile easily. And second part is when it comes to matchings. The moment the matchmaking happens, the recruiter will not look at the ATS fetched data. Trust me. So we've been using ATS. We never look at the ATS fetched data. What we look at is if I find somebody smart, strong, we open the portfolio and resume and then we start fixing the application details. Otherwise, we just move on.
So that is the first major issue I faced in the industry.
Okay.
And don't you think it's a foul play? Like, if the traditional way of selection of resume, that would have been much great. Like, a lot of people right now, I would also say, like, most of my jobs, like I have changed 3 jobs, all of them are through networks or a direct, resume share. Like, the person have gone like in person and then they have got back to me. So.
Foul play, I would say, like, so it's a different perspective to look at it in general. So let's imagine as a human being, you're a recruiter, for instance, and you are hiring 10 different positions or 15 different positions, and for each position you are getting hundreds of resumes. So it will be lost. I mean, the whole, it's pile of resumes and I don't have how to organize that particular data. From that perspective, that is kind of their justification to look at ATS as a solution. On the other hand, as a candidate also, if you look at it, you are also right. It's a foul play. In fact, I would say that majority of the decision should happen looking at the portfolio rather looking at anything else. It's not the individual, it's not the company that they come from, it's not the current compensation that they make, right? So it always has to be in terms of what kind of portfolio they have and what kind of projects they've worked on. So depending on these two things, a decision has to be made. But end of the day, that's not in control of anyone. So it's individually, every company has a policy and it goes alongside to the policy.
So one last question. This is the biggest problem which I am facing. I think most of the people also facing right now. So see, knowing everything in our domain is perfect. Okay, we know what to speak, what not to speak. Now, getting into a company, you will reach a certain point where your employer or like your boss push you way too hard okay, makes you do extra late hours without paying, extra hours and all those things. So now how to tackle that? Because my previous company, I have resigned for this reason. They have put me, way beyond extreme situation. They made me project manager, project coordinator, plus I was a tech art there and doing Unreal, multiple tasks. So there I struggled a lot, okay. So a certain point came where I couldn't, give my personal time to my family or any other person because my travel, distance was 1 hour from the office and all. So that was an extreme point. So I tried to convince my employer, my boss. So he was not convinced. He was like, is your job priority or this, other personal matter? So I would say, like, is it actually really there is something, a solution for this to how to get rid or solve this while demanding your, rights while securing your job?
Right.
Is there some?
So my straightforward answer is change the employer. But like to just that's kind of like a very immediate instant solution. But I would say it all depends on why are you working so much. I mean, there is always a measurement of, for instance, let's say you are supposed to be putting 9 hours into it, and you are saying that I'm going to put another 3-4 hours to it. So is it just because of you being bombarded with too much of work where it is impacting your top line, which is your top line is growing with your work? Or is it the inefficiency of the team that you're working through which your working hours are impacted? So you need to basically analyze the root cause before having a conversation with your boss. So sometimes what happens is this crunch that happens is having team which is not efficient enough. Probably you need to deliver an asset, for example, in X number of hours, but you are not able to get that going. Or probably you have an efficient team member who is delivering it within the turnaround time, but the brief that you're getting is kind of changing every time. So probably today you did a fantastic asset matching to the whole description that you got to that asset. But eventually what happens is the guy who's sitting in the studio, heading the studio, say, hey, no, my mood is changed now, change this whole thing. So now again you're redoing the same stuff, and that's where that gets into the crunch, because though he's changing too many times, but your timelines will not change. That will impact your whole outcome. So therefore you need to do that root cause analysis and then have a constructive conversation. I mean, subjective to what problem. Is it an efficiency problem, or it is it's a poor planning. So if it's poor planning, you should basically say that, hey, listen, I would really need to step up and fix this particular thing, so that this is impacting my work-life balance, or probably my personal time is being compromised because of this thing. So that conversation needs to happen only after that root cause analysis. Hope I answered.
Yeah, but my boss wasn't going well with that discussion also.
Okay.
But, I would really request, like the way you have done this workshop, to, get into a job, okay, please do this thing, like, how to survive in a, role with a perfect, stability and sustainability. That's what, I would be looking forward from you in future.
Sure.
Because, most of the people here, my colleagues also suffering from the legalities, the legal side of how to sustain if the boss is doing something, pressurizing or something like, way too hard to you. And if it's a red flag, do you have to exit? And if you exit the company, there is a remark in your, profile that you have changed multiple companies in 1 year of span. So that's also a problem. Now I am only 2 years experienced, but I have changed 3 companies. So that's also, every company is asking me in the next round, why did you change, companies very frequently? So that is causing a big issue. So please do this in future.
Sure,
Right.
we'll do it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, we can wrap up the session, right? Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Mohammad Ali Sheikh. Thank you so much for a very engaging workshop. I'm sure there was a lot of takeaways. Thank you once again for your esteemed presence this evening right here with all of us. Thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this incredible day one of Bengaluru GAFX 2025 right here at Kalinga 2. Well, from cutting-edge technology of Marvel's Spider-Man and AI-driven game design to unlocking investment opportunities to career growth strategies, today has been truly a powerhouse of knowledge and inspiration. Taking a moment to thank all the panelists, our speakers, and our attendees. Thank you so much for making today's experience truly a memorable and a fantastic one. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be back tomorrow, of course, with news lineup of speakers and session. Well, I promise yet another action-packed lineup of sessions are waiting for all of you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, see you all tomorrow at Bengaluru GAFX 2025. My name is Ruxana Syed, signing off for now. And here's wishing you all a great evening ahead. Thank you.